Hello noble ones and welcome to Metatron's Academy. Today's topic has to do with using your own language when you are living or spending some time or even visiting another country, so you are abroad. There are two specific instances that I'd like to tell you about. One happened in the UK and the other one happened in the US. Now, I'm not aware whether this happens also in other Anglophone countries, so if you're from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, or any other place where English is the main language, please let me know if these sort of scenarios happen as well. But what I do know is that I have never seen anything like it happen neither in my country, Italy, or in, for example, Japan, where I spent 4 years. So let me tell you these two specific scenarios. I was living in the UK, I was in my late teens, and I was also sharing my flat with a Frenchman. We were communicating in English mostly, but that's where most of the French that I know, not that much, but that's where I got it from. I got it from him. So anyways, we were sharing this flat, and then at one point we went to this English family for dinner. They were very nice, they were inviting us very often. And then as we were having dinner, they also happened to invite another person from France. So full English family, 7-8 people, 2 French, me. So as we were having the meal, we were all talking, but we were also sort of speaking about different things. So you have like some people, like a brother and an uncle speaking, and then the main father speaking with me. And at one point, the 2 French started speaking in French. It took about 10 seconds until the homeowner said this: "Welcome to England, we speak English here." So moral of the story, the guy got highly offended that these 2 individuals were speaking French. Story number 2, you've got 2 people and they are speaking their language on a bus in the US. They're speaking to each other. They're not speaking to the other people around. But one of the ladies there, she is American. She gets really annoyed by the fact that these 2 individuals are speaking in another language. She turns around and says, "We are in America. Speak American." Now, these 2 stories are very interesting and I'd like to discuss them from a linguistic standpoint. And when I say this, I'd like to underline the fact that this channel is completely politics free. We do not talk about politics here. I want you to be able to come here and enjoy linguistic content regardless of your political associations or ideas. This is not a video about immigration. What we are talking about here is in fact in connection with sociolinguistics. So what is sociolinguistics? Sociolinguistics is the study of language in relation to social factors, including, but not limited to, differences of regional, class and occupational dialect, gender differences and bilingualism. In this case specifically, we are focusing on that branch of sociolinguistics that discusses cultural norms, expectations and context of language usage as a powerful emblem of social behavior. Now, the first thing that I'd like to say is that if you notice at the beginning of the video, I said that this kind of situation tends to happen, in my opinion, mostly in Anglophone countries rather than in other countries such as Italy or Japan. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I've never seen once an Italian getting mad at a couple of Americans because they're speaking English, or an Italian getting mad at a Chinese because he's using Chinese with another Chinese, even if they are near them, on top of public transport, or even having dinner at the same place. Although I'd like to underline, this does not apply to every American or every English person. I'm fully aware of that, but I'm saying these isolated cases, I think they are connected to the widespread of English as a lingua franca. So, people who are born speaking English, they have a great advantage in the sense that wherever they go, usually they can communicate using their language, but they also have the disadvantage that this means that statistically, at a population scale, people who speak English as a first language usually, this also creates this kind of interplay between cultural backgrounds that are different even at a linguistic level. An Englishman might have a higher chance of getting pissed at someone who's using another language because either he feels excluded, which can also be the case in some situations, but also because there is a sort of, I want to say, unjustified expectation that everyone needs to speak English anyways. In that specific scenario where I was the guest in someone else's home, I mean, I wasn't even part of the problem, I wasn't speaking French, but you're a guest in someone else's home, so you don't want to be rude to them. So if you can speak English, massive elephant in the room in there, if you can, then it's polite to do that so they can feel included in the conversation, particularly if you're also speaking to them at the same time. But if that's the case, then should we also approach that when it comes to the nation? I mean, as a foreigner myself right now living in America, I am a guest, so should I just stop speaking Italian and just using English? at all times. You see, the reason why I don't think that this necessarily works, and probably the best way to approach this, even at a sociolinguistic level, is in fact a sort of compromise, is the following. The people that tend to get pissed at you for using your language in their country, namely the two examples that we just mentioned earlier on this video, are the very first to use English when they come to visit your country. In other words, I'm in Italy. These people who complained about me speaking in Italian in their own countries fly and come here as tourists, never seen them speak Italian among themselves, and I don't think I ever will. They probably don't even know how to say good morning in my language, and yet they expect me to switch entirely to English when I'm in their country, and that's what you call a double standard. But possibly the reason why this double standard is there is once again because of the position English holds at an international level. Does that justify it? Well, not necessarily, not entirely, and there are plenty of people like my dad who don't speak English. He doesn't know a word of English. So if we were to go visit the UK tomorrow, Italian is the only language we could use. So it wouldn't be fair to get mad at us if we were on a bus, like it happened in that video, because we are using Italian. I mean, at the end of the day, you are not using Italian when you come to my country. I can't imagine you learning Italian and using it with your father if you're coming to my country. So what would be a good approach or a good compromise when it comes to this? First of all, it's important to recognize that whenever someone learns your language, whether it be English, whether it be Italian, there is a lot of work and sacrifice that goes into that. And as language learners, you know that. So when someone learns your language and they use it when they are in your country, it means that those people are in fact interested in your country, interested in your culture, and value your language to the point of wanting to spend hundreds, if not thousands of hours to reach fluency in said language. But the problem oftentimes with people that have always been monolingual is that they don't know how much effort it takes to reach the ability to speak a foreign language because they've never gone through the process themselves. Everyone speaks English. Why are you not speaking English? But in order to have a neutral and fair approach to this, we also need to realize the fact that it's really a case-by-case scenario. Let me give you a few examples. My brother and I are spending time with you. You only speak English. We both speak Italian, of course, but we also speak English at a reasonable level. We hang out with you the entirety of the afternoon and we keep speaking Italian even though we know that you can't understand a word of what we are saying. Well, that is rude and we are not being nice to you. So that would be one of those situations in which I would agree with the Anglophone. Be like, guys, you do speak English already. You're hanging out with this guy. Don't exclude him. You're spending time with him. On the other hand, I think as an Italian living in the US right now, I shouldn't feel ashamed of my language, particularly if I use it in a situation where either I need to. For instance, I'm helping someone who doesn't speak English, they only speak Italian, they are in a situation and I want to help them out. Maybe they're looking for a supermarket or they're looking for a train station, so there's no problem using Italian. If I'm just doing shopping and I'm inside a shop and I'm speaking in Italian with my cousin, sure, the shop employee might not be able to understand us, but it's like when we talk to you, we switch back to English. If we can. Always remember that one. So I think when it comes to this sort of linguistic exchange, and most importantly, the interaction between different cultures and different upbringing, it's always important to try and find a middle way, if you will. This is something that I think should be taught. Oftentimes at school, when we teach kids or we're teaching middle schoolers, high schoolers, we focus only entirely, these are the words, these are the sentences. But what about preparing them for something like this? I think having a class that explains situations like this one would really go a long way into helping in interactions that are not just based on mere languages and vocabulary, but culture. And within this specific class, I would add all of those things that you find even videos on YouTube. Oh, when you're in Japan, don't do these 10 things. When you're in America, don't do these 5 things. And these are important. They're great because they prepare you to avoid being offensive to a culture that is different than yours. And at the end of the day, you are a guest. For instance, the fact that the Japanese are speaking on the phone, particularly if you're doing it in a loud voice when you are utilizing public transport, is heavily frowned upon in Japan. So if you go to Japan, you don't really want to do that. There are plenty of things like this in America as well. There are plenty of things like this in Italy as well. And it's important, I think, to prepare people for these type of exchanges and misunderstandings that come not from necessarily just a linguistic standpoint alone, but a sociolinguistic one in connection with cultural difference. But of course, let me know if you have had any experience like this of your own, and please share your thoughts, because at the end of the day, the comment section is a way for every student of Metatron's Academy to share their thoughts and initiate uplifting debate. Thank you very much for joining Metatron's Academy.